Governor, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
It's great to have you here.
So I wanted to start off with maybe some personal questions, just because I think my audience is a national audience. I'm sure they're familiar with you. What is something that you've been obsessed with recently that has nothing to do with politics or policy? And you can't say sports.
Why? No, I'm like a legit sports fan.
Yeah,
and so any moment where I am not doing this work or something with my kids, I'm into sports. But I'll share with you, I'm getting dangerously into sneakers.
Okay.
So like I rarely will wear dress shoes. I hate dress shoes. I usually wear like some kind of sneak, but like I'm like starting to get to that point where I'm thinking about buying too many. And so I think that is a worry of mine that I got to be a little careful. I'm right on the brink.
I mean, sneaker culture is real.
It is real.
Yeah.
And I'm actually blown away by all I've learned about the huge business behind it. There's some great like custom shops in Philly and elsewhere. So you asked for something having nothing to do with politics. There you go.
It's a good answer. What is something that your closest friends or family would roast you about if they were here?
Roast me about?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I get my balls busted quite a bit by family and friends. I give it pretty good too.
Okay.
I think my wife will tell you I'm funnier than most people think. And part of that is, sort of giving it to others and taking it back from them.
What is something that your staff, who some of them are here, would say that you are too nitpicky about?
I mean, we demand excellence, but we demand excellence from one another. I want to be really clear. Like we were talking about sports before. So I'm a big basketball fan and still play. You have 5 people on the court. If one is dominating, doing a great job, but the other 4 aren't, or vice versa, the team's not going to win. And so we talk every day about that team mentality. If I give a great speech, but my, chief of staff doesn't do her job or she does a great job and I fail to deliver on my part, we're not going to deliver for Pennsylvania. So I'm like very, very serious about everybody operating at the absolute highest level for their thing. And I consider myself not to be anybody's boss, but to be their colleague. So I guess I'm trying to answer your question really directly. Like I am nitpicky about everything, but they're also nitpicky back. And I encourage that. We all want to elevate one another and we all want to be our best and deliver the most we can. And so it forces everybody to be, I'm not sure I'd use the word nitpicky, but you asked the question. I think we're striving every day to be perfect at what we do and grading against ourselves each day.
What is something that you deeply care about that almost never comes up in interviews? Like you've walked away from multiple interviews being like, man, I wish they would have talked about this.
But I'm surprised how little people talk to me about the work we do to help people with disabilities and the work I've done to help survivors of childhood sexual abuse. These are things that I think are just so foundational, right? Treat people with respect, protect children. And I'm surprised in interviews or conversations like this, I'm not being critical in any way. You asked the question. I'm just like surprised with the work I've done in that space that folks don't ask about it. I think in part it's uncomfortable sometimes for people to ask questions about that, but I wish they talked more about that.
Well, I'm glad I gave you the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
So on that note, today you introduced the budget for the fiscal year for Pennsylvania. And in that, you praised the low unemployment right now, the increased funding for education, record high energy production, and Pennsylvania being one of the only states, or the only state in the Northeast, according to Moody, with a growing economy.
Correct.
Of these and of the other things that were listed today that you're proud of, what are you the most proud of in that?
Man, I hate when you have to pick one thing. I think it all fits together, right? I'm proud of the fact we made historic investments in public education and public safety and economic development, and it all fits together. Our workforce is growing because we're educating people better. The reason why I think our kids are doing so well is they have a safe community to live in. The reason why more businesses are showing up is in part because we have a better workforce, in part because it's safer, and in part because we've incentivized that. So it all kind of fits together. So I'm not trying to get out of answering your question on the one thing, but I really think those 3 things are core, fundamental things that people care about. by the way, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they all want good schools, safe communities, economic development in their community. And I think that's something that all fits together as a singular thing that allows us to have the only growing economy in the Northeast.
Of those things, though, what do you think was maybe the hardest to actually achieve?
All of them.
All of them.
And I'm not being cute. I was the only governor in the country for 2 years. Now I think there's one other where we have a divided legislature. So I've got a Senate led by Republicans. I got a House led by Democrats. So for me to get any of that stuff passed, and we've passed so much really wonderful, progressive, piece of legislation and budgets. To get any of that done, you need Republicans and Democrats alike. And it is hard in this climate. It's hard bringing people around the table and creating dialogue. It's hard helping Republicans walk out of a room getting a win while Democrats also walk out of a room getting a win. And so I've had to set the table for progress, bring people together to get that done. It's all been hard. Everything is a slog. I joke with some of my fellow governors, by the way, Republicans and Democrats alike who have unified legislatures. I'm like, man, it must be way easier to be able to get that passed just within your own party. And obviously it is. And so I think for us, we really value the wins we get because they're hard fought and they're bipartisan and they help all Pennsylvanians.
I think on that note, you have, based off of the most recent polling data, you have a 62% approval rating right now, which puts you in the top 10 of all governors in the country. And you are very, very much in a purple state that in 2020 voted for President Biden and in 2024 voted for President Trump. How do you think you've been able to meet the needs of all Pennsylvanians to be able to get such a high approval rating as a Democrat in a state that is so divided politically?
Yeah. It's so divided politically. I mean, don't forget, I got one Democrat U.S. Senator, one Republican. I got an almost evenly divided congressional delegation. I've got 253 state lawmakers. The entire division there is three seats. I think for me, it's show up, especially in areas where Democrats don't typically go, listen intently instead of talking at people, treat them with respect, and then do. So when I show up on a farm and farmers tell me, look, what I really need from government is I actually need more technology because I can get a better crop yield if I have more technology, more AI actually on my farm. We delivered that. We actually now are the only state in the entire country with an ag innovation fund. Just one example of many. You got to show up. You got to treat people with respect. And you got to listen. And I pride myself on that. Not sitting in the office every day. For as glorious as it is, for as much of an honor it is to be in this office, I don't want to be here every day. I want to be out in the community, listening to people, learning from them, and then doing.
Beautiful transition, because you mentioned AI, and today you highlighted massive AI investment, and we've read that a number of big tech companies are going to be building data centers here, and this has caused a little bit of anger with some of your constituents who are worried about the environmental impact, who are worried about what it means for the towns that they're going to be in. What is your counter pitch to the people that are currently even maybe furious about all these data centers coming?
Well, what I would say is I understand their worry and I share it. We're not at odds here. I've heard from the local community and I get what they're worried about. And so today I announced a package of what I would consider reforms that is going to protect the public. I call it grid, but in a nutshell, it's number one, if you're going to build a data center here, you got to bring your own power and you got to pay for it because we can't saddle homeowners, businesses, and others with the added cost. Second, too many of these data centers or data center applicants, I should say, show up in a community, don't say what they want to build. It's kind of a black box, right? You really don't know. They're not honest with the public, and that's got to change. So we have some transparency measures if they want to build in a community. Third, they got to hire people and train people from that local community. And there needs to be a community benefits agreement. So if I'm going to be in your town needs to get the benefit of that. And then finally, we need to make sure that all of our environmental regulations, particularly when it comes to water, which is such an important part of the operations of these data centers, the use of water, while the amount of water is going down, it's still intensive. Got to adhere to the strictest standards. And if you do all of those things, the community is satisfied, the Commonwealth is satisfied, the community wants you there, then you can unlock speed in our permitting process, and you can unlock tax credits from the Commonwealth. We have had examples of where companies have worked really well, and the community is excited that they're coming. 10,000 jobs in an area that, really needed it. And then we have other areas where I hear the neighbors say, we don't want this here. And by the way, I agree with them. I wouldn't want that there. And we're not going to support those projects. We're not going to give them the benefit of the grid stamp of approval, if you will. And so I think this is common sense. Look, we got to beat China when it comes to AI supremacy. Pennsylvania is uniquely positioned to house these data centers because of our energy production. But it's got to be done in a way that protects our planet, protects communities, and allows the local community to actually benefit from this.
Moving on to a little bit of a national concern that's happening right now. You've stated in the past that you are preparing for ICE and DHS in Pennsylvania in kind of a larger scale. And currently in Pennsylvania, there are local agencies that are already participating in 287G agreements with ICE.
Local, not state. Local, not state.
Yes, not state. Local.
Not the state police and
not the
anything.
State police.
Right.
Local police have. Several governors, we were talking earlier before this began about Governor Kathy Hochul. I actually just interviewed her last week, and she had introduced legislation that would actually, if passed by the state, would prevent local, authorities from participating in partnership with ICE and collaborating with them and cooperating with them. Are you considering this? And if not, what is your position right now?
Sure. Well, first off, Kathy's a friend. Her dynamics in her legislature are really different than mine.
Yeah.
So legislation like that would never make its way through my legislature. And so what I'm doing, and I put this in writing a few days ago, happy to share it with you if you've not seen it, spelling out exactly what the Commonwealth does when it comes to dealing with ICE. So first, if I can I want to answer your questions very specifically, but I want to step back. I think folks are right. I am concerned and scared. They're right to feel concerned and scared when we see what's happening in Minneapolis. What's happening there is a compromised mission that has completely eviscerated the trust with the community. And I believe the mission needs to be terminated immediately. People's constitutional rights are being violated. Laws are being broken. And I say this as a former attorney general, just based on the available evidence that I've seen in the media. I think some of those federal officials should be charged for the killings of Ms. Good and Mr. Preddy, and arguably for the cover-up and the conspiracy that has occurred after when it comes to the protection of a crime scene and the investigation that needs to happen. So those are my views. Here in Pennsylvania, we are very clear. Our Pennsylvania State Police, and just for your knowledge, because I'm not entirely certain how it works in New York, the state, I oversee the Pennsylvania State Police. A municipal police department is overseen by the Board of Supervisors, the mayor, what have you, not under my command. So I just want to be clear. The Pennsylvania State Police does not carry out ICE operations, number one. Number two, we do not ask for immigration status at like a routine traffic stop or something like that. And number three, we do not share information broadly with ICE through our police databases. For example, ICE couldn't go into our database and type in a broad command of, we want to see everybody that meets this characteristic. Now, if there's a specific criminal investigation going on and it is warranted and they want to look up John Doe or Jane Doe, they have to do that with the approval of the Commonwealth law enforcement through the state police. So I just want to be clear because I think there's been some misinformation out there. We also do not house ICE detainees in our state prisons. So there's a number of steps we have already taken to try and make clear that the Pennsylvania State Police is there to support our communities, build trust with our communities, keep our communities safe, arrest the bad guys when they do something wrong, but we are not there to do ICE's work for them.
I think on this note, actually, there are a lot of people in Pennsylvania who are upset about this giant detention center that's potentially being built here. I think it's an opportunity for you also to clear up that like you don't have a lot of say in
Right.
the federal government building this or not, right?
The federal government is looking to lease a building, as we understand
Yep.
it. They didn't check with us first, and they engaged in a commercial transaction here in Pennsylvania. I don't want this here. This is not something that I think should be here. We're exploring whatever legal avenues we have, but understand this is the federal government entering into a contract with a local developer, landowner, or what have you, in order to build it. It shouldn't be here. I don't think that this fosters trust in a community. I don't think this is helpful to have in our community. I don't want it here, and we're exploring what options we have. But I do want to make clear, we didn't engage in this.
No.
This is not state land. We do not lease state land to ICE. We don't lend state land to ICE, and we don't rent out state land to ICE.
Yeah, because I had asked actually a lot of my followers questions, and specifically Pennsylvanians, and that was the number 2 question.
Great.
Was
I'm glad we got the chance.
Yeah,
to talk
and
about
I even looked into it, and I was I was going to individually respond to everybody, but I was like, I don't think that he can actually block them from leasing this space.
No,
it's like
we are exploring what legal options we have. But I think there's been some misinformation as there was some kind of state building that we gave. None of that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we got the chance to clear that up.
I wanted to transition to something that I have found. I've admired you for your position on this specifically. You were very public about being Jewish during a time of increased anti-Semitism in this country. You've also been very critical of Netanyahu and his actions taken in Gaza, as well as calling for humanitarian aid.
Yeah.
Both stances open you up to a lot of criticism. When you are alone, away from cameras, I know we have cameras on us now, but I'd love to hear from you. What part of this actually hits you the hardest and impacts you as you're trying to navigate this?
Yeah. All of it. And I must say, I appreciate your comment about my faith and living openly about my faith. But in many ways, I separate out my faith from what I see happening in the Middle East that really troubles me. I have for years been critical of the Netanyahu government. And I do think it is possible to love Israel as I do. I've enjoyed my visits there and enjoy the rich history and heritage and culture there and multiculturalism there. And also really despise the government that's leading it and feel like they're leading Israel down a really dangerous and destructive path. I think it's also possible to look at what happened on October 7th when Hamas, which is a terrorist group, killed 1,200 people and raped women and assaulted children and took 200 or more hostages. And I mourn for that loss. And then to see the response, understandably, to see a response from the Israeli government, but to see that response over a long period of time, while they were targeting Hamas, which I think is a justified operation, not take care to limit civilian casualties, that also breaks my heart. I mean, if I see a kid who's hungry, I don't really care which side of the border that kid is on. I want them fed. I want families who are growing up in Israel and families who are growing up in Gaza and the West Bank and elsewhere. I want those kids to believe that they can be whatever they want. They can be a podcaster, a journalist. They can be a doctor. They can be an athlete. They can be anything they want. And I think too oftentimes hope feels lost, particularly in Gaza right now. I'm someone who for years and years and years has favored a two-state solution. I know it feels really far from that right now, but I hope we can get there. And so my heart breaks for all these kids, especially. And that's something that I feel just tremendous grief about. Hamas needs to be eradicated from the region. They can no longer be in a position of power. I'd love to see the Israelis pick a different leader as well. And I'd like to see us try to move toward a place where everybody gets to live with some dignity and respect.
Final question. I'm sure you're tired of talking about this because I've watched all your interviews the past few weeks and it's come up. So I'm going to ask you a different type of question. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. So 107 days, obviously, during the VP vetting process. In the book, Kamala Harris states that she felt like you had wanted to be in every room, wanted to be a part of every decision. And that may have been one of the reasons why you had come out and said that that is not the case. And the on-the-spot question is, do you think that had she actually picked you, that she would have had a better opportunity to win in 2024?
First off, as I've made clear, 48 hours before she made her choice, I took myself out of consideration. I think at the end of the day, this was an election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I don't know that me or Tim Balls or J.D. Vance or anyone else on the ticket made any bit of a difference. The American people made a choice between who was going to lead them forward. And unfortunately, they chose Donald Trump. So no, I appreciate to this day the very honest and candid conversation the vice president had. Obviously, as you know, I have a different perspective than maybe she does on that, but I absolutely respect her. I appreciate the candor in that discussion. I appreciate that it led me and my family to reaching the conclusion we did, that was not the right thing for us. And then I went out and I worked my tail off for her and Tim and the entire ticket because I knew just how dangerous Donald Trump would be in this country. We're seeing the effect of that. And I knew that she'd be a far better president than Donald Trump, and Tim would be an outstanding vice president, a hell of a lot better than J.D. Vance has turned out.
I think a lot of people forget that you did go out and campaign a lot for them, even after this. So
I did that first night in Philly. My dear friend Gretchen Whitmer and I, with Tony Evers, we traveled across.
I remember seeing that. Yeah,
we did a bus tour across Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I filmed an ad. I mean, I did everything I could, and it's just terrible that the election turned out the way it did.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time.
Great to be with you. Big fan, and thank you for
appreciate it.
If I could just say this as we're closing here, I know that this is a challenging moment for a whole lot of folks out there. And I know that for a lot of people, the response is pull up the covers, turn off the news, and pretend it's going to go away. And by the way, I get why sometimes people turn off certain news, but they're turning you on and they trust you, and your voice is helping not just comfort people because you make them feel better, but more importantly, you're giving them facts, you're giving them access to people, and you're giving them something they can hold on to in a time where it feels like the ground's shifting under them all the time. So I just want to say thank you for what you do. Appreciate you being here in Harrisburg and the chance to talk to you.
I hope my journalist teacher in college is paying attention to that because they gave me a C+.
My goodness.
Thank you so much, Governor. I appreciate it.
Thank you.